The final question addressed to our Trinitarian panel from our non-Trinitarian experts. Where does the word God in the Bible ever mean the triune God? 2 minutes to respond.
Well, you know, I don't think that that's even a proper question, to be perfectly honest with you, because we believe that God is the normal term that is used of the Father. Kurios is the normal term that is used of the Son. And so while we see many places in the Old Testament where God acts in a generic sense, where there's no indication that it's the Father doing this in opposition to the Son doing this or opposition to the Spirit doing this or anything like that, that's why we have no problem with the singular pronouns. God can act singly, and before the incarnation, the outpouring of the Spirit, there would be, what else would he use? Would he use plural pronouns? I don't understand how that would work, so I don't see why that is even an argument. In fact, I would like to point out, I don't see that it's an argument that 1,300 times the Father is called God. How many times is he called Lord? Kurios is the more specific identification of the name of God in the Old Testament. Theos is the very generic term, Elohim, which is used of pagan gods and everything else. Does that somehow make an argument? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, Theos is used primarily of the Father, and Kurios primarily of the Son. Those are their Trinitarian names.
In addition to that, we have explicit testimony in the Hebrew Scriptures where the Son is called Elohim, the exalted Davidic king. The Messiah is called Elohim Kisach Elohim La'olam Va'ed in Psalm 45. That Elohim is seen in Exodus chapter 24. And that Bereshit bara Elohim in Genesis 1:1, that Elohim creates the universe. So Elohim refers to God, period, simple, we believe that. Elohim can also refer to the Son. Either they're two different gods or one true God that we worship. When you expand on that into New Testament testimony and find that in Acts 5, for example, lying to the Spirit is equivalent to lying to God, then the Spirit is also identified as God. So Father, Son, Spirit, all identified as God. That's triunity. It's also fascinating that in Semitic languages, to speak of power, to speak of majesty, you will normally use a plural noun, frequently a plural noun. So we understand that Elohim, when referring to God, does not refer to God's plural. But in Semitic language, to refer to many power, you can refer in plural.
Thank you. And 90 seconds for your rebuttal.
Yes, it seems to me extraordinary that one would not identify verse after verse after verse where God, Elohim, let's say Adonai, Kyrios, Theos, the various words for God, 11,000 of them altogether. Clearly, you'd expect, if you believe in a triune God, when you say Kyrios, when you say Adonai, when you say Theos, when you say Elohim, you mean the triune God. But in your book, Dr. White, you mention this fact that God refers to the three, but you don't give us a text. You don't cite a text. An example. Now, we're looking for plain text. Where does Theos mean the triune God in the New Testament, let's say?
Okay, your response, 90 seconds, Dr. White.
Since the question was asked in my book, I've given many examples. The Father is identified as God clearly. The Son is identified as God in numerous places. We didn't have any rebuttal to the text that we raised at that point in Titus 2:13, 2 Peter 1:1, other places like that. And the Spirit is the Spirit of God. If you're looking for a single text where Theos is somehow meant to apply to all three, every single text in the Old Testament where no differentiation is being made between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit would be that, and any reference in the New Testament to the generic actions of God in the Old Testament would likewise. It sounds like what's being said here, we don't want to see the clear distinction and the revelation of the Father, Son, and Spirit in the New Testament, and we're going to reject the use of Theos of these other two persons and say, give us a place where all three are identified by this one word. That would require us to find a place where the word was not being clear enough to tell us who we were referring to, which post-incarnation and the outpouring of the Holy Spirit would be the exact opposite of what we would expect to find.
I'd also point out that John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. Either we have two gods there, or one God who is both God and the Word. I'd also point out that Genesis 1:1, that says in the beginning, God created the universe, that the New Testament tells us in passages I've cited before explicitly, speak of the Father and Son creating together. Explicit, undeniable language. If you want to talk an abundance of scholarship, we can cite the abundance of scholarship, so there'll be a landslide. But it's clear.
Thank you.
It's clear.